Hey y'all, it is Nikki. Welcome back to the channel. I've been working on my ongoing fantasy project, doing a lot of brainstorming, making some progress, so let's talk character transformations and part 3. Part 3. This is the first draft of this story that I've actually broken into parts like this. As I moved from that first original draft to the next draft and the draft after that, the story did get longer and longer, so that I probably should have started breaking it into parts. And I realized pretty quickly that trying to fit that entire story into one unit like I did the first time was just never ever going to happen. I decided to break it into a trilogy, which I'm actually really thankful for now. It freed me up to spend some more time developing the story. I could slow down the pacing. You didn't have to move from plot point to plot point at like Mach 5. So the drafts got longer and longer until the one that I'm currently working on, which is the longest it has ever been. I'm currently sitting at, I think, 300 pages-ish. And this point in the story was roughly the halfway mark in past drafts, which could be a problem, but I love it and I'm really happy with the way this is going, and I feel like part 3 could be like the best part in the entire story, with God's help to get the ideas in my head onto the page in written form. I've spent a good chunk of this week working on outlining and just sort of working out the story before I get too deep into writing part 3. That requires checking myself, because typically I'm the type of writer that just wants to like dive in full speed ahead. I'd rather be writing than outlining, even though I'm a plotter and I need to outline. This time, instead of doing that and making that mistake again, which I've made so many times, I decided to actually take the time to work on my outline, to just do the homework first. And shout out also to my brother, who spent like a good chunk of his evening the other night just talking through story stuff with me, basically being my soundboard, working out kinks with me, catching plot holes that I missed. Seriously guys, if you don't have an amazing listener in your life, I would highly recommend you find yourself one, because it is so valuable and just so appreciated. Bro, you're a legend. I have realized that one of the key issues with this particular draft is villain motivations. I don't really fully know what they are. Because it's only the first book, I've been kind of telling myself that, oh, all the big reveals will happen later in the series, so I guess I'll just figure it out before I get there. In the meantime, I'll just give them a bunch of cryptic lines and like tension-building ambiguous moments that make them seem scary, but you don't really know why. Here's another piece of advice. Do not put off until tomorrow character building and backstory development that really should happen today. Again, if you're like me, you will decide that you're going to figure all that out later, get to the end of this draft, and then realize, oh man, now I have all these brilliant ideas for a backstory and motivation for this villain that I now need to subtly incorporate into this book to set up the next one. What do I do? Do I rewrite? Do I trash this whole thing? Do I try and feather new things into the old things, which I have tried to do, and I do not recommend it. Do the prep work, guys. It is worth it. One of the most exciting and kind of significant things that has happened in this particular part of the story and all the drafts that have come before is the progression of a character who, for the purpose of this video, I will call Guinevere. She has come a long way since I first introduced her to be just sort of like a romantic side plot for my hero. I feel like to understand how far she's come, I needed to go back to the beginning and remember what she was like before. She started out as kind of like exactly what you don't want a female character to be. She was like flat, she didn't really have much of a personality. She was like pretty and nice and kind of there just for the sake of the main character, just kind of bland. She had a lot of good qualities, like she was, you know, kind-hearted and compassionate and had a clear moral compass. She acted as sort of a moral guide for my hero. She sort of reminded me of some kind of like Arthurian medieval lady, like the Lady of Shalott or something. She was just there kind of to guide him and be a good influence on him. She also didn't have any point of view moments at all, so she was very peripheral and you didn't really ever get too close to her. I think I moved away from that pretty quickly. In the next drafts, I started working with her character a bit more, getting into her head. I wanted to give her some like point of view moments, which I feel like was definitely a step in the right direction, but my fatal flaw was that I still didn't make her a character for her own sake. I was kind of using her as a mirror for my hero. Up to that point in the story, my hero had been dealing with a lot of hostility, a lot of characters that were against him and probably making some bad choices. So I think subconsciously, I was trying to use her to remind the reader that, like, no, we can be on his side. He's actually a really good character. Remember this? And it was definitely semi-romantic. He's a guy, she's a girl. She was intrigued by him, and so through him, I was hoping that the reader would be intrigued by him too. But it wasn't all romantic. She was also a way for the reader to see from the outside that he was a virtuous character that we can really support and get behind, that he has a good heart, a way of kind of highlighting all his best qualities because you're not in his head hearing his internal monologue. And on top of that, she was kind of a damsel in distress. And I'm not anti-damsel in distress. Like, I have no problem with a female character needing saving sometimes. I mean, I'm a girl, and if I were in a dire situation, I wouldn't mind being rescued. What I don't like, and what gets on my nerves, is when female characters are like totally useless and they can't do anything to help their own situation at all. She wasn't quite there, but I did feel like it was just too much on the side of damsel in distress, because again, I put her in that like distressed position for the sake of making my hero look good. So, I should say, though, that there were positives to her character, even her earliest character, that I did want to hang on to. I didn't want to lose the softness of her character. I really liked that pure-hearted vibe that she had originally, and I didn't want to lose that. So then I moved forward in the next drafts, worked on her even more. I got more into her head. She had more of a backstory, so she was becoming less of like a passive periphery character and more of a character in her own right who had stuff to contribute to the story. But it was, and is, a really fine line to walk between what she was and what she could be. I don't want her to come across as too weak, too fragile, that she's useless. But I also don't want to overcompensate by making her the sort of like over-the-top, irritating, strong female character, because that's just not what I ever had in mind for her. In past drafts, the desire to be like brave or tough was really central to her character. She was kind of like a Rapunzel or an Anna, like a character that hasn't seen much or been anywhere and feels a little bit trapped and just wants to see the world, which I guess is also kind of Jasmine and Ariel. So just pick your Disney princess. That was pretty much her. And enter this hero who has been a lot of places and done a lot of things, and he's intriguing because of that, and then boom, instant love. It didn't really work for me. The Wanderlust thing felt like a little tired, but also that like warrior princess thing, it just didn't really make sense for her character, and I didn't really like it. I didn't like the idea that her value as a character is measured by like how tough she is, like in a battle context. It's just not really relatable, to me at least, at all. What I've realized about myself is that that's not really the kind of female character that I tend to love. For example, if you look at Marissa Meyer's Lunar Chronicles, I love all of the characters, to be clear, but the female character that I love the least would definitely be Scarlet, who is sort of that like strong female character in a more physical sense, where she'll come after you with her shotgun if you trespass on her farm. She's interesting as a character, and I like reading about her, but she wasn't my favorite, and the one that actually was my favorite was kind of the total opposite. She was a character that wasn't necessarily as strong in like a physical sense, but she was incredibly resilient and capable of just enduring so much for the sake of her convictions and not compromising on what she believed in. I love that. Not only do I think it's more like relatable and attainable for like the average gal, but I also just have so much respect for that, and I just aspire to that. And that is what I wanted this character to kind of be more like, less about the physical strength and more about her resilience and her ability to endure, and this sort of like quiet but even stronger kind of strength. So thank God that is the kind of character that she has become. She is allowed to be weak and fragile sometimes. She's allowed to need saving sometimes, but she also has a ton of this just like quiet but super striking strength, and she has a lot of opportunities to kind of shine in that way. She's maybe not as physically strong as the hero. It wouldn't be realistic with her backstory and her upbringing if she was, but she is just as strong and stronger in other ways, and she also gets some opportunities to do some saving herself, which I love. I think that I can feel pretty confident that a hero is like on her way to being complete when God can use that hero to convict me or inspire me in my own sort of personal growth. When I can look at Guinevere and see parts of her that I want to aspire to and be more like in order to be a better person and a better Christian even. I always love it when God uses like our creative pursuits to speak to us personally about something that we may need to hear. That can make an entire project worthwhile even if no one else reads it but you, because you have learned something from it. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Do you have any characters that have undergone any major transformations over the course of their life as characters? I'd love to hear about it. And also, what are your thoughts on my character's journey? Do you think she has a ways to go still, or do you like kind of where she's landed? Feel free to like and subscribe or comment below with any other thoughts you might have. And as always, do not forget to spend some time in the clouds today.